In the suffocating darkness of an infernal dungeon, the world is nothing but pain. The scent of sweat and iron mingles with the stench of despair, permeating the air of this forsaken hellscape. The protagonist, once a revered and loyal warrior of the gods, is now a broken man, shackled by chains that cut deep into his skin. His muscles are weak, his body covered in scars from years of excruciating torture. The once mighty figure who fought in the name of justice, righteousness, and divine will, now lies in ruin. As the days blur into one another, all he knows is agony. The gods, the very beings he served with unyielding devotion, have cast him into this pit. The reasons behind his betrayal are a mystery, one he is desperate to solve. He remembers the glory of his past life, his comrades, the endless victories, the promise of eternity by the side of gods. But now all that remains is the cruel darkness and the torment that never seems to cease. The protagonist's mind drifts between reality and hallucination, his thoughts often slipping into memories of when he first began serving the gods. He remembers the sense of honor, the righteousness in his heart, the belief that he was part of something grand. His faith in the divine being seemed unshakable, and the gods had shown him favor. He was strong, revered, an unbreakable shield in their name, but all of it was a lie. His betrayal came in the form of a cruel twist. He was accused of treason, of breaking the sacred laws he had followed without question. The truth, however, was far darker. The gods, those he had fought for, had used him as a pawn in their own divine games, casting him aside when his usefulness ran out. Left to rot, tortured to the brink of insanity, he was forgotten by the very beings who once called him their champion. As time passes, something within the protagonist shifts. The endless pain, the betrayal, the loss of everything he once held dear, all of it ignites a fire within him. It's a fire that burns brighter with each passing day, pushing away the fog of despair. The protagonist's body is weak, but his mind grows sharper, his resolve harder. Every lash, every cut, every moment of suffering is fueling a singular, overwhelming desire: revenge. One fateful day, after what feels like an eternity of torture, something changes. A faint pulse of energy stirs within the protagonist, a faint glimmer of his old strength. It's like a distant echo, a faint memory of the power he once commanded. His muscles ache as he moves, but his heart beats faster with the realization he's not completely broken. The gods may have cast him aside, but they had not yet destroyed him. He feels it, his potential, dormant yet alive. Suddenly, a crackle of energy surges through his body. His chains, once seemingly unbreakable, tremble. He clenches his fists, an overwhelming surge of power flooding his senses. It's not enough to break free yet, but it's a beginning. His body pulses with the force of his awakening, a power he thought was gone forever. It is a power that no god can control. No longer the helpless warrior in chains, the protagonist starts to understand the depth of his transformation. The gods may have thought they could destroy him, but in reality, they've only helped him unlock a part of himself that was buried deep within. The pain becomes less important now. He focuses on the energy within, the fire in his veins, and the endless thirst for revenge. The dungeon that was once his prison is now his forge, a place where he can rebirth himself. The chains may hold his body, but his spirit is free. His rage, his pain, his longing for vengeance, everything is distilled into that one singular goal: to become something far worse than what the gods could ever imagine. As the protagonist pushes against his chains, the mysterious figure appears. A soft, ghostly voice cuts through the silence: "You should rest, you're not ready." The voice is unfamiliar, but its tone is comforting, almost knowing. From the shadows steps a figure, a woman draped in dark robes with an aura that radiates both power and sorrow. Her eyes, glowing faintly with a mystical light, lock onto the protagonist's. She is Seraphine, an exiled ally of the gods, someone who knows the deep secrets of the divine beings. Her eyes scan the protagonist, and with a grim nod she says, "They will pay for what they did to you. But first you must learn to control what has awakened within you." Seraphine's presence is like a beacon in the darkness, her words stirring a sense of purpose in the protagonist. She steps forward, her hands outstretched as she releases a stream of glowing energy, cutting through the chains that bind him. The chains fall to the ground with a resounding thud. "Come," Seraphine urges, "the gods won't wait forever." With that, she turns and begins to walk away, a trail of dark energy following her steps. The protagonist, now free, watches her leave, his body aching from the struggle, but his mind clear with purpose. He knows that his journey is far from over. In fact, it has only just begun. Cliffhanger: as the protagonist follows Seraphine, they reach the dungeon's exit, a massive door adorned with runes that pulse with divine energy. But before they can pass through, the door slams shut with a deafening roar. A booming voice echoes from the other side: "You will never escape the gods' grasp." Seraphine turns to the protagonist, her face serious. "You thought your fight was against the gods," she whispers, "but it's far more than that. The gods are not the true enemy here. There is something far darker, far more dangerous than you could ever imagine." The protagonist stands frozen, his heart racing. For the first time, he feels a shift in the air, a sense of looming danger that has nothing to do with the gods but with something far worse. Will the protagonist be able to escape the dungeon and the divine forces that await him? What new power lies dormant within him? The answers are waiting, but they come at a great cost. The crackling energy that surged through the protagonist's veins reverberates throughout his body, a tidal wave of power that both terrifies and excites him. His chains, now nothing more than twisted metal on the floor, lie discarded, but his body remains weak from years of torture. His vision flickers with flashes of white as his breath comes in ragged gasps. Each beat of his heart pulses with the urge to lash out, to destroy everything that has held him captive. The faint glow of Seraphine's mysterious energy still lingers in the air, its soft light casting long shadows on the walls of the dungeon. She stands before him, unmoved by his internal struggle, her eyes cold and calculating. She doesn't speak, but her presence is a constant reminder that something far greater than the gods is at play here. Seraphine takes a step closer, her fingers brushing lightly over the dark energy surrounding him. "It's not enough," she murmurs. "You can't escape this place without learning to control it. Your powers, they're dangerous, but they're not yours to command, not yet." The protagonist stares at her, feeling an odd mixture of frustration and understanding. He doesn't care about control. He wants revenge. He wants to make the gods who betrayed him pay in the most brutal way possible. But the surge of power within him is wild, untamed. It makes his blood burn with fury, and it scares him because he can't control it, not yet. Seraphine seems to read his thoughts, her lips curling into a knowing smile. "You have to understand, vengeance alone won't make you powerful. Power isn't about destruction, it's about balance. Until you learn that balance, you'll remain a tool just like the gods made you." Her words are heavy, but they strike a chord deep within him. The truth is hard to swallow, but it's the only path forward if he hopes to succeed in his quest for revenge. For the first time since his awakening, the protagonist listens to her. His mind, clouded by rage, begins to quiet, if only for a moment. Seraphine begins a series of motions, placing her hands over his chest as she murmurs incantations that resonate within him. Her energy flows into him like a river, guiding his own power, coaxing it to take form. He feels the surge of energy within him, unstable and unpredictable, but now there is someone here helping him harness it. "You'll need this power," Seraphine continues, "not just to kill the gods, but to survive them. The power you seek is not the same as the one they hold. They control the elements, life and death. You can control something much more dangerous: destruction, rebirth, and chaos. That's your birthright. The gods have made their mistake, and now they will pay." Seraphine's words pierce through his confusion, clearing the fog in his mind. For years, he was a tool of the gods, a weapon wielded by their will, but now he is no longer bound by them. He is free to carve his own destiny. But as he stands, feeling his newfound power stir within him, a sudden shift in the air makes his heart race. Something isn't right. The shadows seem to grow darker, and a sense of impending doom presses down on them both. Seraphine's face hardens. "We need to move now." Before the protagonist can ask why, the ground trembles beneath them. The dungeon walls, once silent and still, now seem alive with energy. The distant sound of booming footsteps shakes the foundation of the prison. The gates that had once kept him confined now seem to pulse with a malevolent energy, as if they are reacting to his awakening. "They know," Seraphine says with urgency in her voice, her eyes scanning the dark corridors. "The gods are aware that you've broken free, and they won't let you leave without sending their agents." The protagonist clenches his fists, the energy within him surging once more. He's not afraid, he's ready. He will face whatever comes his way. His body is tired, but his mind is focused. There is no turning back now. Suddenly, the doors to the dungeon burst open with a resounding crash, and figures clad in dark armor storm in. These are not just ordinary soldiers, they are divine agents sent by the gods, creatures of immense power and speed. The protagonist can feel the weight of their presence, an overwhelming aura of godly power that presses down on him, reminding him of his own weakness. One of the agents, a tall figure with a helmet that obscures most of his face, steps forward. His voice is deep and unnerving. "You should have stayed in your chains. You belong to the gods, and you always will." The protagonist steps forward, a surge of energy rippling through him. His body hums with power, but it is still volatile, still untamed. He looks at Seraphine, who gives him a single nod. She will not intervene. This is his fight, his test. With a roar, the first divine agent charges at him, a massive sword raised high. The protagonist reacts instinctively, throwing himself into the fight. His body moves faster than ever before, his limbs energized by the awakening power coursing through him. The agent's sword swings down with impossible speed, but the protagonist sidesteps it, his movements fluid yet unpracticed. For a split second, he feels the weight of his own uncertainty. The power inside him is not fully under his control, but there is no time to hesitate. He summons the power within, and with a burst of energy, his hand becomes surrounded by a dark, crackling aura. He punches the divine agent square in the chest, sending him crashing into the wall with a force that shakes the entire dungeon. The agent crumples to the ground, defeated, but it's not enough. More agents pour in, each one more formidable than the last. The protagonist fights with everything he has, his body battered, but his resolve unwavering. He feels the power coursing through him like a river, wild and untamed, but it's enough. As the battle rages on, Seraphine watches from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. She knows that this test is crucial. The protagonist cannot fight recklessly forever. His power, as immense as it is not something to be squandered. He has to learn restraint, control, and the cost of using his abilities carelessly. But there's no time for that now. Each divine agent he faces seems to have its own unique abilities, and they grow more desperate with each passing second. The protagonist is pushed to his limits, his body aching, his breath ragged, but he cannot stop. He has a purpose now, a goal, and he's willing to burn everything in his path to achieve it. The last divine agent falls to the ground, defeated. The protagonist stands, panting heavily, his energy nearly spent. His body trembles from the exertion, but his heart pounds with the thrill of victory. For the first time in years, he feels alive, like he's truly in control of his fate. But as he turns to Seraphine, his expression hardening, he knows that this victory is only the beginning. The gods will not let him go so easily. There is a storm on the horizon, and he is at the center of it. Cliffhanger: before the protagonist can catch his breath, the ground shakes once more. A shadow looms over them both. The dungeon doors, once destroyed, creak back into place as a massive, divine creature steps into the room. It's the herald of the gods, an ancient being of unimaginable power. "This is only the beginning," the creature growls, its voice like thunder. "The gods will not allow your escape. Prepare yourself for what comes next." With a flash of divine energy, the room goes dark and the protagonist feels his power waning, as if the very atmosphere is trying to crush him. The fight is far from over, and what lies ahead is far worse than anything he has faced so far. Will the protagonist survive this first test, and will Seraphine's cryptic words hold true, that his real battle is only just beginning? The days following the battle are a blur of exhaustion and reflection. The protagonist stands at the edge of a cliff, overlooking a vast and desolate landscape, his breath still heavy from the recent struggle. The tension in the air is palpable, the world around him feeling heavier with each passing second. The fight with the divine agents was only the beginning, and now the true nature of the path ahead is starting to unfold. Seraphine's words echo in his mind. "You are not yet ready." She had been right. Despite his raw power and fierce determination, the protagonist had barely scratched the surface of his true potential. His energy had been wild, reckless, hard to control. If he hoped to survive the coming battles, he would need more than just strength. He would need control, discipline, and an understanding of his abilities that he had never before considered. Seraphine watches him from a distance, her face unreadable. She knows the journey ahead won't be easy. The protagonist's rage has fueled his power, but rage alone won't keep him alive against the gods. She approaches him silently, the sound of her footsteps muffled by the soft winds of the wasteland they find themselves in. The tension between them is thick, but she knows that he must learn to master his power before it consumes him. "You're growing stronger," Seraphine says, breaking the silence. "But that power is a double-edged sword. You're playing with fire, and eventually you'll get burned if you don't learn to control it." The protagonist turns to face her, his eyes hard and determined. "I don't care about control. I only care about killing the gods." Seraphine's gaze softens for a moment, but only for a split second. "Then you will fail." Her voice is calm but firm, filled with a wisdom earned through years of living in exile. "The gods are not so easily defeated. They control not only power but knowledge, strategy, and the very fabric of this world. They will not simply let you destroy them. You must learn more than just how to fight." The protagonist doesn't respond immediately, his eyes scanning the barren landscape. The weight of Seraphine's words sinks in slowly. There is more at stake than his personal vendetta. He is up against an enemy that is far older, far wiser than anything he has ever encountered. His desire for vengeance is still his driving force, but the realization that he needs more than just brute strength to defeat the gods is a bitter pill to swallow. Seraphine continues, "The gods are many. You will need allies if you want to stand a chance. It's time we sought out those who share your hatred and your goal." At first, the protagonist is skeptical. Trust has become a rare commodity in his world, and he's learned the hard way that alliances can be just as treacherous as enemies. But Seraphine's unshaken resolve makes him pause. She is no mere guide. She is someone who knows the stakes, who has lived through the pain of betrayal just like him. We'll start with, she says. The name stirs something deep inside the protagonist, anger, bitterness, but also faint curiosity. Is a name whispered among those who once fought for the gods, a warrior who fell from grace and was consumed by his own hatred. Like the protagonist had been a god killer, a former tool of the gods who had broken free from their grasp, but unlike the protagonist, had allowed his bitterness to turn into madness. His power had become a curse, consuming everything he once was. Why him? The protagonist asks, skepticism evident in his voice. Because he knows the gods better than anyone else. He's been hunting them for years, Seraphine answers. He is dangerous, yes, but he also possesses knowledge that you need. He won't be easy to convince, but he will be essential. The protagonist doesn't argue. He knows that Seraphine speaks the truth. If he is to succeed, he must broaden his horizons and gather strength wherever he can find it. As much as it pains him to admit, he can't do this alone. The journey to find is long and treacherous, taking them through barren wastelands and desolate forests. The terrain is unforgiving and every step feels like a test. As they travel, Seraphine trains the protagonist, helping him refine his skills. The protagonist's powers, once raw and untamed, are slowly starting to take shape. He can now manipulate the dark energy within him with more precision, but the struggle for control remains constant. Along the way, the protagonist begins to see the vastness of the world he once served. He had always known the gods to be supreme, but now, as he ventures further from the familiar, he realizes just how deep their influence reaches. It's not just about vengeance anymore, it's about survival. The gods have their hands in everything, from the very land to the lives of the people. They are a presence that cannot be ignored, and they will not let him go unchallenged. One night, as they camp beneath the stars, the protagonist finds himself contemplating his mission. The fire crackles in the distance, casting an eerie glow over their surroundings. He looks to Seraphine, who is sitting by the fire, her expression unreadable. "Do you think will help us?" he asks quietly. Seraphine looks at him, her eyes sharp. Is a man consumed by his own hatred, but hatred can be a powerful ally as long as you can channel it. If he sees the potential in you, he will join us. But if he doesn't, well, then we will need to face him too. The protagonist nods, his thoughts swirling. His hatred for the gods is what drives him, but he knows that there's more to this fight than his personal vendetta. He must learn to navigate the world of power, control, and alliances. The encounter with. When they finally track down, it is in a dark, hidden cavern deep within the mountains. The air is thick with tension as they approach the entrance, and the protagonist feels the weight of his upcoming encounter with the legendary god killer. The cavern is cold, damp, and filled with the scent of blood and iron. It's a place that reeks of past battles, and the protagonist feels a surge of unease in his chest. Seraphine leads the way, her steps sure and steady, while the protagonist follows, his senses heightened, every fiber of his being alert. They find in the heart of the cavern, surrounded by weapons and armor that tell the story of his endless battles. The man himself is a hulking figure, his body covered in scars, his eyes a cold and lifeless gray. His hair is long, wild, and tangled, and his demeanor is one of barely restrained violence. He looks like a man who has long since given up on the world, if he ever had hoped to begin with. When Seraphine enters the cavern's eyes flicker to her, but he doesn't speak. There's no welcome, no greeting, only the tension of two warriors who have crossed paths too many times before. "You're here to ask me for help," says finally, his voice like gravel. It's not a question, but a statement. Seraphine doesn't flinch. "You're needed. The gods are planning something much worse than anything we've faced before. The destruction of the world is at hand, and you're the only one who has the power to stop it." Chuckles darkly, his eyes narrowing. "The world? You're asking me to fight the gods for the world? After all they've done to me, to us, you've got a death wish." The protagonist steps forward, his voice low but steady. "I don't care about saving the world, I care about vengeance." His eyes flicker with interest. "Vengeance, that's something I understand, but I've been down that path and it doesn't lead anywhere but madness. You'll burn yourself out, boy." The protagonist stands firm, his gaze unwavering. "Maybe, but it's a fire I have to ignite." For a moment, the cavern is silent, the tension thick enough to cut through. Studies him, his face unreadable, before finally speaking again. "I'll join you, but know this, you won't be able to kill the gods with rage alone. You'll need more than that. You'll need strategy, cunning, and strength, and you'll need me." Cliffhanger. As agrees to join their cause, a tremor shakes the cavern and a low, ominous growl echoes through the stone walls. The gods are aware of their movements and they are coming. The first true battle is on the horizon and the stakes are higher than ever. Will the protagonist and his new ally survive the coming storm? or will their newfound alliance crumble before it even begins? The journey begins almost immediately after their uneasy alliance is forged. The two powerful warriors, once enemies of the gods, now walk together in pursuit of a common goal, revenge, but more than that, survival. The protagonist feels an uneasy camaraderie with a sense of mutual understanding rooted in their shared pain and rage. But he knows that trust is a fragile thing, especially when the gods are hunting them relentlessly. Every step they take further into the wilds brings them closer to a confrontation that neither can avoid. For days they travel in silence, with only the occasional words exchanged between them. He is a man of few words, and his actions speak louder than his dialogue. His movements are methodical and precise, honed through countless battles and years of hunted exile. His presence is a constant reminder to the protagonist that revenge is not something to be taken lightly. It requires patience, cunning, and an iron will. Seraphine, too, is ever present, her cool demeanor and silent guidance steering them through dangerous lands. But her eyes are often filled with something more than the tactical brilliance she exudes, a deep, almost sorrowful knowledge of the costs of the path they are walking. The protagonist, still learning to control the raw power that had erupted from within him in the dungeon, struggles with the temper of his abilities. The power within him is vast, but it is still untamed, and with each battle they face, he feels the risk of losing control. He can feel it. The power pulses, an unstoppable force inside him, constantly whispering for release, for destruction. On the fifth day, as they pass through an ancient forest where the trees stand like twisted giants reaching for the sky, the tension finally breaks. A sudden, unearthly scream rips through the air. Reacts instantly, drawing his massive sword with a fluid motion that speaks to years of brutal training. His eyes scan the trees, searching for the source of the noise, his muscles tense and coiled. The protagonist's body immediately reacts to the sound, the raw power inside him flaring as his senses sharpen. His heart pounds in his chest, adrenaline flooding his veins. Seraphine's eyes flash with a warning. They're here. Before the words even leave her mouth, a group of figures emerge from the dense forest, their bodies cloaked in divine armor. These are not ordinary soldiers, nor are they mere agents of the gods. They are something much worse, elite enforcers known as the Harbingers, elite beings that serve as the gods' personal executioners, sent to destroy threats too dangerous to be left alive. They are immune to most forms of mortal weaponry, and their presence fills the air with an overwhelming aura of godly power. The protagonist's pulse quickens. He can feel their power, a pressure against his chest that makes it hard to breathe. But his rage, that constant fire burning within him, surges. This is what he has been waiting for, the moment to prove that he is not just a pawn, not just a victim. The gods may have once had him shackled, but now he is their executioner. Stay focused, growls, his voice low and dangerous. These aren't gods, but they are close enough to be their puppets. Don't let them get inside your head. The protagonist nods, his eyes burning with determination. He will not be swayed. This battle will be his first true test of control. The first clash. The Harbingers charge, moving with a speed that defies belief. Their swords, forged with divine energy, shine brightly, and each movement they make is filled with lethal intent. The protagonist can barely track their movements, but his instincts guide him as he steps forward to meet the assault. A Harbinger swings a sword with impossible precision, and the protagonist barely manages to dodge, the blade grazing the edge of his cloak. His body twists and spins with an unnatural speed, the power inside him responding to his movements like an extension of his own limbs. He lashes out, his own hand crackling with dark energy, striking the Harbinger's armor with an explosive burst of force. The impact sends the Harbinger stumbling back, the divine protection of their armor barely holding up against his raw power. But the Harbingers are relentless. Another one swings at him, and this time the protagonist is too slow. The blade slashes across his chest, and a searing pain lances through him. For a moment his mind flashes with the memory of his torture, his body being ripped apart by the gods. He can feel the pain, but it does nothing to weaken him. It strengthens him, igniting his fury. Focus, Seraphine's voice rings out, sharp and commanding. The protagonist shakes off the lingering thoughts of past suffering and grits his teeth. He has control, he will have control. With a roar, he channels the energy inside him, forcing it to surge with precision. The next Harbinger that approaches is met with a crushing blow. His fist strikes their armor, and the divine energy shatters upon impact. The Harbinger crumples to the ground, unconscious but alive. Not bad, says, his voice tinged with grudging approval. But don't get cocky, there's more where that came from. As if on cue, the remaining Harbingers regroup, their leader raising a hand in the air. There's a flash of divine light, and the air around them crackles with a newfound intensity. their leader's eyes glow with the power of the gods themselves. Enough, the Harbinger leader barks, his voice reverberates with the weight of divine authority. You think you can defy the gods? You are nothing more than mortals. You will die like all the others. The leader raises his sword, and the very ground beneath their feet begins to tremble, cracks forming in the earth. A surge of divine energy flows through the leader's weapon, the very air thick with the tension of impending destruction. Seraphine steps forward, her hands raised in a defensive gesture. This is no ordinary battle, she warns. The Harbingers have their orders. If we don't defeat their leader, they will keep coming. The protagonist, bloodied but determined, stares at the leader. He can feel the raw power emanating from the being, but he also feels something else, a flicker of weakness, an opening in the leader's aura. It's faint, but it's there. With a grim smile, he turns to, I can take him. Raises an eyebrow, skeptical, you're not ready for that. But the protagonist is already moving. The raw energy inside him begins to swell once more, and he channels it, focusing it into a singular point of destruction. He doesn't care about finesse, all he cares about is ending this now. The final stand. With a roar, the protagonist charges forward, his body moving faster than he has ever moved before. The air around him crackles with dark energy as he slams his fist into the leader's barrier, the impact creating a shockwave that rattles the ground beneath them. The Harbinger leader grunts, barely holding on to his divine shield. The two clash again, and this time the protagonist's power explodes outward in a burst of energy. His punches land with devastating force, shattering the leader's shield and sending shockwaves through the ground. The leader struggles to regain his balance, his divine aura flickering as the protagonist overwhelms him. But even as the leader stumbles, he doesn't relent. He raises his sword for one final strike, and the protagonist, in a last desperate move, focuses every ounce of energy into his fist. The collision is earth-shattering. In that moment, the protagonist's power surges beyond his control. The raw force inside him detonates in a blinding explosion of dark energy. The Harbinger leader is thrown back, his body disintegrating under the sheer force of the blow, leaving nothing but a scorched, empty crater where he once stood. The remaining Harbingers hesitate, their leader now gone, and a tense silence falls over the battlefield. Cliffhanger. As the dust settles, Seraphine watches with a mixture of awe and concern. You're more powerful than I thought, but you're playing with fire. You won't survive if you keep pushing yourself like this. Before the protagonist can answer, a deafening roar echoes from the distance, louder than the previous tremors. The skies darken and the ground trembles once again. A new threat looms on the horizon, far greater than anything they have faced so far. And in that moment, the protagonist realizes the gods are not just watching, they are coming. Will the protagonist and his allies survive the next wave of divine enemies, or will this be the moment they all fall? The battle against the Harbingers is a brutal reminder of the strength the gods still wield over the world. But for the protagonist, something more profound has begun to shift within him. As the dust settles from their victory, the weight of the clash leaves a lingering sense of doubt that gnaws at the edges of his consciousness. He may have destroyed the leader, shattered the divine enforcers, but a question remains: is this enough? His body is battered, his energy drained, but there is a fire within him, a fire that burns ever brighter no matter how much he expends. Still, the battle left its mark. He looks down at his hands, stained with the blood of those who once served the gods. The exhilaration of victory has faded into something more troubling. The cost of his power is beginning to show. In the heat of battle, he fought as if nothing mattered but the kill, but now, in the aftermath, the weight of his actions begins to take root in his chest. The gods, once distant, now feel far too close, and the price of revenge seems higher than he anticipated. Seraphine observes him, her expression unreadable. Her silence in the wake of the battle speaks volumes. She has seen this before, the weight of too much power too soon, the toll it takes on one's mind and spirit. She knows the protagonist has crossed a line, one that cannot be uncrossed. Are you ready for what comes next? Seraphine's voice is sharp, cutting through the stillness. This was just a taste. You won't be able to win by throwing your power around mindlessly, not when you face the gods themselves. The protagonist turns to face her, his eyes intense, but with a hint of weariness that was not there before. I don't care, I'll destroy them all. Seraphine's gaze softens, but there's a note of caution in her voice. Destroying them is not the same as defeating them. Vengeance can consume you just as it has consumed others before you. You need to be ready not just in power but in mind and spirit. He looks at her, frustration simmering beneath his words. And how am I supposed to be ready? When will I ever be enough? When will I have the strength to do this? They've taken everything from me. Her response is slow, deliberate. Power is only one part of the equation. Control is the other. Right now, you're just an explosion, unstable, uncontrollable. But power, when tempered, becomes something else. A weapon, a force that can shape the world. The words strike him, but they also leave him more frustrated than before. He doesn't need her lectures. He doesn't need to learn how to temper his rage. He's spent too long at the mercy of others. He wants nothing more than to destroy the gods and everything they've ever stood for. Yet deep within, a small part of him knows Seraphine is right. He cannot keep relying on the destructive power alone. His recklessness is going to cost him everything if it hasn't already. The loss. In the days that follow the battle, the protagonist's struggles with control intensify. The power inside him is like an animal, constantly straining against its chains. Every battle, every fight against a divine agent or a stray enemy draws more power from him. His body grows fatigued, his muscles aching from the constant strain. His mind, once sharp and focused, is now clouded with doubt and frustration. He pushes himself further, harder, trying to break free of the limits that Seraphine insists he must respect. But it's not just physical. The emotional weight of their fight is beginning to take its toll on the protagonist in ways he didn't anticipate. The faces of those he has slain, the god's servants, the soldiers, linger in his dreams, taunting him. He sees their faces in the dead of night, their eyes pleading for mercy. For a brief moment, he questions his resolve. Is this truly the path he wants, to become a killer, consumed by vengeance, or to rise above it all and reclaim his place in the world? But his resolve, as firm as it ever was, returns quickly. He remembers why he is doing this. He remembers the agony of his imprisonment, the years of torment. The gods took everything from him, and now they will pay. Then comes the day that shatters everything. It's an ambush. Seraphine and the protagonist are resting at the edge of a river, taking a much-needed break from their travels. The landscape is serene, the sun dipping low on the horizon, but this calm is shattered in an instant. A shadow looms over them. The earth trembles and the sky darkens with unnatural speed. From the trees, dark figures emerge, beings far more terrifying than any divine agent they've faced before. These are not simple soldiers. These are elder guardians, ancient beings who serve as the gods' personal protectors. Their very presence sends a chill through the air, and their aura is suffocating. The protagonist feels it immediately, the oppressive weight of their power. They are here to end this, to silence the threat the protagonist poses before it can grow any stronger. The first guardian strikes, moving with terrifying speed. Its weapon is a spear of pure divine energy, crackling with godly power. Before the protagonist can react, steps in front of him, blocking the blow with his own sword, the force of the impact sending him skidding back. "Get ready," growls, his eyes filled with grim determination. These things don't die easily. The protagonist's body reacts instantly. The anger surges in his chest, his hands crackling with dark energy as he hurls himself into the fray. But as he faces off against the guardians, something unexpected happens. He falters. A blast of divine energy strikes him, throwing him back into the dirt. His vision blurs, his chest tightening in pain as the energy pulses through him. For the first time, he feels the weight of his exhaustion, the sheer toll his powers have taken on him. His body is battered, his spirit drained. The guardians are not mere warriors, they are something far worse. The protagonist realizes with growing dread that they have underestimated the scope of the gods' reach. These beings were created to withstand the power of any mortal and remain unscathed. "I'm not ready," the protagonist whispers to himself, his voice shaking with realization. Seraphine stands over him, her expression cold but filled with a hint of pity. "You pushed yourself too far. I warned you this would happen." But it's too late for regrets. The elder guardians close in, their weapons raised to strike. The protagonist's body aches and his breath comes in ragged gasps. He looks at Seraphine and for the first time, doubt floods his mind. Is this how it ends? Not with a blaze of glory, but in failure, weak, exhausted, and broken. Cliffhanger. Just as the guardians raise their weapons to strike the final blow, a massive surge of divine energy erupts from the earth itself. A blinding flash of light blinds everyone in the clearing. The ground shakes violently as the source of the power begins to manifest. From the center of the energy, a voice echoes, reverberating in the air. Enough. The guardians freeze, their eyes flickering with a mix of fear and reverence. The protagonist's heart races. Who or what is this? The voice speaks again, its tone cold and commanding. You are all fools, thinking you can escape the gods' will. You will be shown your place. A figure steps out of the light, tall and imposing, with an aura of divine power unlike anything they've faced before. It is neither god nor man. It is something else, something much worse. Will the protagonist survive this encounter, or will this new force prove to be his final challenge? The light that envelops the clearing fades slowly, its intensity leaving an afterimage burned into the protagonist's vision. As the darkness recedes, the figure that steps forward is not one of the god's divine agents, nor is it simply another elder guardian. It is something far more terrifying, an entity whose very presence distorts the very fabric of the world around it. The air seems to hum with power, and the earth trembles beneath their feet. The figure stands tall, a towering silhouette that radiates an unsettling aura. Its form is cloaked in an armor of shimmering, ethereal material, like liquid metal flowing over an unholy skeleton. A crown of dark energy hovers above its head, twisting and distorting as though reality itself is warping under its influence. Its eyes are cold, pits of infinite darkness that seem to stare through the very soul. The protagonist, still kneeling on the ground, feels an overwhelming pressure on his chest. His breath becomes shallow, his heart hammering in his chest. He feels as if the world itself is against him. Every ounce of energy in his body wants to retreat, to hide from the malevolent force that has appeared before him. Seraphine, though slightly shaken, remains steady. She knows this presence, this force, and her eyes betray a deep, unsettling recognition. It's you. The figure's voice, when it speaks, reverberates with a hollow, ancient echo, as if countless souls were trapped within it, their voices trapped in agony. You are not worthy of my presence, but it seems I must make an example of you, all of you. The protagonist struggles to rise, his body trembling under the weight of the pressure that seems to bend reality itself. His power, once a surging flood of raw energy, feels suddenly insignificant in the presence of this being. He tries to call on his dark energy, but it refuses to answer. The power within him pulses, but it's like fighting against a tidal wave that only drags him under further. Seraphine's face hardens, her eyes narrowing with dread and frustration. The Dread Warden, it's true then, the gods never intended to truly fall. They created it to be their final line of defense. Who has been silent until now steps forward, his sword drawn. He looks between the entity and the protagonist, his expression unreadable. We're not going down without a fight. We've come this far. The Dread Warden shifts, its unnerving presence only growing. Its gaze sweeps across the group. Fools, you think you have the gods? You have been nothing but puppets playing in the hands of something far more ancient. You should be thanking me for granting you the privilege of meeting your end. The protagonist, his hands shaking but his voice firm, manages to speak. What are you? The Dread Warden's eyes narrow as if amused by the question. I am the gods' ultimate weapon. I am their tool of retribution. I am what they created to ensure their rule would never be threatened. You are nothing more than children playing in a world they built. I was meant to hunt down all who sought to destroy the gods to maintain their reign. Seraphine's expression is one of shock, her usually composed demeanor cracking for the first time. You were created by them. The Dread Warden's laugh is low and cruel, sending a chill through the air. Oh yes, when the gods realized they had grown too complacent, they foresaw the possibility of rebellion. So they created me, a being of their design, both divine and monstrous. I am their eternal enforcer. I was built to keep their power intact, to ensure their dominion over all. You think you can fight them? You think you can defeat them with mere mortal rage? You will learn your place. The revelation is staggering. The protagonist's chest tightens as he absorbs the weight of the words. His entire journey, his quest for vengeance, suddenly feels so trivial in the face of such a creature, a being forged from the gods themselves to be their absolute force. His quest to destroy the gods suddenly feels more like a doomed attempt, one that may never succeed. But the fire within him, the burning desire for revenge, refuses to be extinguished. He refuses to let this being's arrogance drown his purpose. He grits his teeth, summoning what little energy remains in him, forcing himself to his feet. His limbs ache, his head pounds, but he cannot stand by and let the Dread Warden mock his journey. I'll kill you, he growls, his voice hoarse but filled with defiance. I don't care how you were created, you'll be destroyed like the rest. The Dread Warden regards him coldly, its twisted form barely acknowledging the challenge. You don't even understand your own limitations, mortal. Your rage, your power, it's nothing. You are nothing. Suddenly, a massive hand of dark energy swipes across the sky, crashing into the earth with a thunderous roar. The force of the attack sends the protagonist hurtling backwards, slamming into the rocks with a bone-shattering impact. Pain floods his body, but there is no time to recoil. The Dread Warden moves with terrifying speed, its otherworldly weapon raised. Charges forward with a battle cry, slashing his massive sword at the Warden's form, but the strike is effortlessly deflected. The Dread Warden's hand moves faster than can react, slamming him into the ground with a powerful force. The sound of the impact is deafening and is knocked unconscious, crumpling like in a heap. The protagonist calls out, but his voice is lost in the chaos. He struggles to rise, feeling every injury tear through him. The Dread Warden's overwhelming power presses down upon him like a weight he cannot lift. He's out of his depth. He realizes with a cold clarity that no matter how much rage he feels, no matter how much he channels the raw energy inside him, he is not enough. The Dread Warden strides toward him, a cold, mocking smile on its face. Is this it? This is the might of those who would challenge the gods? Pathetic. With a final, deafening roar, the Warden raises its weapon, ready to end it all. Cliffhanger, but as the weapon comes crashing down, a sudden, unexpected explosion of light erupts from the center of the battlefield. The earth shakes and the very air crackles with intense, raw power. The protagonist, dazed and weakened, watches as the light coalesces into a familiar, terrifying shape. A figure clad in white armor, its power unmistakable. It's not over yet, the figure says, its voice filled with an overwhelming authority. Who is this new figure? What is their true purpose? And can they help the protagonist turn the tide against the gods' ultimate weapon? The battle is about to reach a new, unimaginable level. The explosion of light lingers in the air like a ghost, and the world seems to hold its breath. The dust and debris settle, revealing the source of the blinding surge of power, a figure cloaked in radiant armor, an aura of divine energy flowing around them like an unstoppable tide. Their presence is immediate, commanding, and unyielding, standing as a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness of the Dread Warden. The protagonist, still lying prone from the brutal attack, stares at the figure through bleary eyes. For a moment, the pain and exhaustion blur his vision and he struggles to comprehend what's happening. The Warden, momentarily stunned by the new presence, shifts its focus, its eyes narrowing in what can only be described as frustration. Who dares interfere? The Warden's voice is a low growl, its immense power crackling in the air. You have no place here, mortal. But the figure in the radiant armor steps forward with unshakable confidence, their every move resonating with power. There's no fear in them, only calm, controlled strength. Their armor gleams with divine light, yet there's something different about them. The light is not like the gods, cold and untouchable. It feels more like a rebirth, a cleansing force. You speak of mortals, Warden, the figure says, their voice steady and echoing with authority, but you have forgotten what it means to be truly alive. I am not here to listen to your arrogance. I'm here to end this once and for all. The Dread Warden snarls, lifting its weapon in a motion of disgust. You are a fool, you know not what you face. The gods are the creators of this world, your defiance will not be tolerated. The radiant figure laughs, a sound that's more like a celestial bell ringing than anything mortal. And you are a tool of the gods' tyranny. You've never known freedom. You've never known the true strength of the will to fight for what's right. They glance toward the protagonist who, despite the overwhelming pain coursing through his body, rises to his feet with difficulty, still clutching at his injuries. You want vengeance, the figure says softly as though speaking directly to the protagonist, but vengeance is a hollow thing if it consumes you entirely. You must remember, strength is not only about power, it is about control. Focus, unity, and the ability to wield that power at the right moment. You've been reckless, now take control. The protagonist clenches his fists. The words cut deep into him, and for a brief moment, a quiet wave of realization washes over him. He's been nothing but a chaotic storm, rushing through the world with anger and destruction, seeking revenge without ever truly understanding how to wield the power he's unleashed. I've been fighting blind, he mutters, the weight of his journey sinking in. The figure turns slightly toward him, their eyes filled with something far older than the protagonist can understand, wisdom, perhaps, or a quiet sorrow. It's never too late to learn. The Dread Warden roars in frustration, swinging its massive spear in an arc of divine energy that causes the ground to tremble. The figure moves faster than the Warden can react, their swords slashing through the air with a graceful precision that seems to distort reality itself. The clash of their weapons resounds with a booming force, shaking the earth beneath them. The battle erupts. The protagonist watches as the two forces collide. The warden, a being of terrifying power, crashes against the radiant figure, but the new arrival doesn't flinch. The divine energy of the warden's spear meets the figure's sword, and for a moment, the world seems to stop as both sides test each other's strength. The protagonist feels the energy of the clash reverberating through his bones. His body is still weak from the previous attacks, but the sight of this battle stirs something in him, a resolve, a flicker of hope. For the first time, he doesn't feel as alone in this fight. He sees someone else, someone far more experienced and controlled, standing against the very power that has oppressed him for so long. The figure presses forward, not with the blind fury of the protagonist's own previous attacks, but with the calm and precise movements of a seasoned warrior. Their every strike seems to disrupt the very air around them, creating ripples in space itself as they engage the warden. The protagonist, still recovering from the dread warden's brutal assault, finds his thoughts clearer. He watches how the radiant figure is fighting with strategy, patience, and focus, while the warden becomes increasingly enraged. It's an overwhelming display of control, and it ignites something deep within the protagonist, a desire to not only fight but to fight properly. With a deep breath, he summons what little strength he has left, calling on the dark energy inside him once again. But this time, he's more deliberate. He can feel the raw force of the power, the burning fire that courses through his veins, but instead of letting it surge uncontrollably, he channels it. He extends his hand and the dark energy flows outward in a controlled wave, not a violent eruption, but a steady pulse of destructive force. It radiates from his body in an almost serene manner, moving with a purpose instead of a fury. For the first time, the protagonist feels a connection to the power. He is no longer a slave to it, it answers to him. He steps forward slowly, deliberately, as the figure in radiant armor continues to clash with the warden. The warden is relentless, its movements a blur of divine might, but the figure stands firm. The protagonist's eyes narrow, focusing on the warden's movements. The final confrontation. Suddenly, the radiant figure makes a move that the protagonist wasn't expecting. With a swift and fluid motion, they create an opening, just a slight hesitation in the warden's defenses. The warden, infuriated by the battle's stalemate, overextends, a momentary lapse in its otherwise unyielding strategy. The protagonist seizes the opportunity. With a roar, he channels his energy into a single devastating strike, sending a beam of dark power directly at the warden's exposed side. The blast hits its mark, tearing through the warden's armor and creating a shockwave that knocks the creature back. The warden stumbles, its immense form cracking against the earth, its roar filled with rage and disbelief. The radiant figure, seizing the opening, delivers the final blow. They move with incredible precision, striking the warden's heart with a powerful thrust of their weapon, and in that moment, the very air around them seems to rip apart as divine energy crackles and explodes. The dread warden lets out one final, deafening scream as its form disintegrates, its body torn apart by the combined forces of the protagonist's dark power and the figure's radiant strike. The battlefield falls silent as the warden's form crumbles into dust, leaving nothing behind but the fading echoes of its fury. The aftermath. For a moment, everything is still. The protagonist stands, breathing heavily, his body aching from the fight. His vision swims, and he feels the strain of the battle in every inch of his muscles. But there's something else, something he hasn't felt before: control. He turns to the radiant figure who now stands before him, their sword still glowing faintly with divine energy. For a moment, the figure doesn't speak, just watches him with a quiet intensity. Then finally they speak. "You've done well, considering," the figure says, "but this battle was only one step on a long path. You still have much to learn about yourself and the power you wield." The protagonist nods slowly, feeling the weight of their words sink in. "I've learned more than I expected." The figure's expression softens slightly. "There's always more to learn, but you have the potential to be more than just a weapon of vengeance. If you're willing to walk the path, I can show you what it truly means to wield power." The protagonist feels something stir inside him, a glimmer of hope, not just for his revenge, but for something far greater. He had always thought of his power as a tool for destruction, a way to exact his vengeance on the gods. But maybe, just maybe, it could be something more, a force for change, a way to reshape the world. Cliffhanger. The radiant figure looks out across the battlefield, their eyes scanning the horizon. "The gods will not let you go so easily. This was just the beginning. There are still far greater forces at work, and your fight is far from over." The protagonist's resolve hardens. "I'm ready." But as he speaks, a shadow falls over the horizon, an ominous figure approaching with a presence far darker than anything they have yet faced. The real battle has only just begun. Will the protagonist be able to fully control his power, or will the weight of his own vengeance and the gods' wrath consume him? The final showdown is closer than ever. The battlefield is silent, save for the faint hum of energy and the fading tremors of the last confrontation. The Dread Warden's defeat still lingers in the air, like the remnants of a storm that's just passed. The protagonist stands in its wake, his body battered, his mind a chaotic swirl of emotions. His chest rises and falls with each heavy breath, and his hands tremble slightly, not from the physical exhaustion of the battle, but from the overwhelming weight of what's to come. The radiant figure, the one who had intervened and helped bring down the warden, now stands beside him, watching with an unreadable expression. Their battle had been a monumental moment, the culmination of everything the protagonist had fought for. But as the adrenaline begins to fade, a new, more insidious feeling takes root in his chest: doubt. Doubt. It gnaws at him, deeper than the physical pain, deeper than any wound he's suffered. The fight had been victorious, yes, but the cost was staggering. Still lies unconscious, his body battered from the warden's crushing blows, and Seraphine looks as exhausted as he feels. The world around him feels like it's on the edge of something, an abyss that no one can see but everyone can sense. For the first time in his journey, the protagonist starts to wonder if he can truly do it. Can he really kill the gods? Can he continue down this path of destruction without losing himself in the process? The struggle within. The protagonist steps away from the group, moving a few paces away to the edge of the clearing. His hands clench into fists, and he looks out over the ruined landscape, his mind racing. The memories flood back, the years of torture, the betrayal, the suffering. All the pain he's endured, all the blood he's spilled. It was supposed to bring him closer to his goal, to give him purpose. But now, standing here with victory in his grasp, he wonders if this is the right path. "What am I doing?" The words slip out before he can stop them. His voice is raw, a whisper in the vast emptiness around him. His thoughts spiral, turning inward. The gods have tormented him, yes. They've used him as a pawn, broken him in ways he couldn't have imagined. But now, after all this time, after all the rage, all the violence, he feels empty. Is this truly the answer? Is vengeance really the answer to the pain they've caused him? Seraphine, always perceptive, steps forward, her silhouette appearing against the fading light. She's been watching him, perhaps understanding the internal battle he's facing better than anyone else. "You're questioning yourself," she says, her voice calm but laden with concern. "You're questioning whether it's worth it, but let me tell you this, you've already given so much of yourself to this cause. It's not just about the gods, it's about you, your soul, your purpose. If you let that doubt win, if you let it consume you, everything you've fought for will have been in vain." The protagonist turns toward her, his expression one of both pain and frustration. "I'm tired, Seraphine, tired of fighting, tired of being used. All I've ever known is rage and revenge. I thought it would be enough, but I don't know anymore. I feel like I'm losing myself." Seraphine walks toward him, her footsteps soft in the silence of the battlefield. She stops a few feet away from him, her eyes filled with both sympathy and understanding. "You're at a crossroads, and I won't lie to you, it's a painful place to be. You fought for so long with nothing but anger to guide you. But that's the problem. Anger isn't a compass, it's a storm that leads you into the dark." The protagonist looks away, his eyes scanning the horizon, where the darkening sky hints at the oncoming storm, the storm of gods and divine wrath that still looms over them. "I don't want to lose myself," he whispers, "but I don't know how to stop." Words. A voice cuts through the tension, harsh and grating as it breaks the moment of quiet introspection. Still battered but slowly regaining consciousness, speaks from where he lies, propped up on one arm. His voice is rough, but there's a weight to his words that carries more experience than he lets on. "You're not the first one to doubt yourself, kid." His tone is filled with bitterness, but beneath it there's a rare honesty. "I've been where you are, hell, I've been in worse places. I've torn through gods and their servants, burned villages and bled for a cause I didn't fully understand. And I didn't stop until I realized one thing: revenge doesn't care if you're alive or dead. It won't give you peace, and it sure as hell won't give you back the parts of you lost along the way." The protagonist looks down at the bitterness of his words striking him deeply. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, are now filled with something akin to regret. It's a look the protagonist has never seen on his ally's face before. "I've spent so long hunting the gods," continues, "but what have I really accomplished? What have any of us accomplished if all we have to show for it is destruction? You have a chance to be different, kid. A chance to carve a new path, a path that doesn't have to end with us becoming the very thing we hate. You're better than that." The protagonist stands there, lost in thought. Words cut through his doubts like a sharp blade. Is that the path he's on? Has he already become a monster in the name of vengeance? The realization makes him shudder, but there's something more there, something deeper than fear. It's the recognition that may be right. His rage, his endless thirst for destruction, it has driven him this far, but it has also driven him to the edge of his humanity. Seraphine's final lesson. Seraphine steps closer, her presence a grounding force in the storm of thoughts that swirl within the protagonist. She places a hand on his shoulder, her touch light but firm. "Your journey doesn't end here," she says quietly. "And it's not over because you have doubts. Every warrior, every hero, every person who has ever fought for something greater than themselves has faced this. What matters now is not whether you doubt, but what you choose to do with that doubt." She steps back, allowing him to absorb her words. "The gods will come for us. They will test you, push you, and break you. They've done it before and they will do it again. But you have a choice that you must make for yourself. You can continue this journey with rage in your heart, but that rage will eventually consume you. Or you can learn to use that rage as fuel, not as a storm, but as a controlled force. You can use it to forge something greater. To protect what matters, to fight for something more than yourself." The protagonist looks at Seraphine, at the steady determination in her eyes. For the first time in what feels like forever, he begins to see a glimmer of something else, something that has been buried beneath his thirst for vengeance. There is a choice, and it is his alone to make. The final resolve. He takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle over him. It's terrifying, it's uncertain, but it's also freeing in a way that he can't fully understand yet. His power, his anger, his pain has always been his greatest weapon. But now, for the first time, he understands that it can also be his greatest weakness if he doesn't learn to control it. "I will do this," he says, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "I will destroy the gods, but not because of my rage. I will destroy them because they have no place in a world where freedom, peace, and choice exist." Seraphine's gaze softens, a rare smile tugging at her lips. That's the spirit. Now sitting up with some effort, offers a grim smile of his own. "Finally figured it out, huh? Took you long enough." The protagonist looks at both of them, Seraphine, and feels something stir within him. Hope. The journey ahead will be long and fraught with danger, but for the first time in what feels like forever, he knows his purpose. And that purpose is bigger than vengeance. It's about freedom. It's about fighting for a future, not just for himself, but for everyone who has suffered at the hands of the gods. Cliffhanger, but as the protagonist steels himself for the future, a dark, foreboding shadow looms on the horizon, a vision of the gods themselves preparing to make their move. The final battle is coming. The protagonist has made his choice, but the true test of his resolve is still ahead. Will he be able to control the rage that has driven him for so long, or will he be consumed by the very thing he seeks to destroy? Only time will tell. The battlefield stands still in the heavy silence that follows the protagonist's resolve. He's made his decision. He will not be driven by blind rage. He will take control of his power, use it not just as a weapon for vengeance, but as a force for change. The stakes are higher than ever, and the gods are still watching. They won't simply allow the protagonist to destroy their empire. The time has come for the final confrontation, the culmination of everything he's endured. But even with his new resolve, the weight of the challenge ahead presses down on him. The gods' final weapon, the Dread Warden, has been destroyed, but the gods themselves remain still as untouchable as ever. The protagonist knows that the journey he started out on, driven by vengeance, has grown into something much greater. His fight is no longer just against the gods, it's against the very forces that have oppressed and enslaved entire worlds for. The final showdown. It happens faster than the protagonist expects. The tension in the air is thick, palpable. As the group moves through the devastated lands now by the remnants of their battles, the ground suddenly shakes beneath them. The horizon seems to tremble with the foreboding presence of an army that has been quietly assembling in the shadows. The gods' forces are not merely coming, they are here. A figure emerges from the shadows, taller than any being the protagonist has ever encountered. It is one of the divine executors, a being designed to be the ultimate enforcer of the gods' will. It is cloaked in armor that pulses with an ethereal glow, its form regal and terrifying. Its eyes burn with the unmistakable arrogance of a god, its very presence filling the air with divine weight. "You have been a thorn in the gods' side for far too long," the divine executor says, its voice booming with an almost godly resonance. "But your journey ends here. The gods have chosen their champion, and you are not it." The protagonist steps forward, his fists clenched, but this time there is no blind anger in his movements. He feels a new strength coursing through him, the combination of his raw power and his newly refined control. He looks at Seraphine and his allies, and they exchange a glance. There is no fear in their eyes, only the same resolve that drives him. Seraphine speaks quietly, almost as if to herself. "This is it. The gods are done hiding behind their servants. This is their champion. Ever the battle-hardened veteran gives a tight-lipped grin. Then let's see if their champion can survive. The protagonist looks back at the divine executor. I've come this far, and I will not stop now. The divine executor's lips curl into a cruel smile. Fool, you believe you can challenge the gods. You are nothing but a broken pawn, and your journey ends with me. The battle begins. The fight unfolds. The clash is a maelstrom of power. The divine executor moves with the speed and grace of a god. It strikes so fast that the air itself seems to vibrate in its wake. The protagonist can feel the raw might of the attacks as each blow lands, though he is no longer the helpless pawn he once was. His power surges through him, now controlled but no less intense. He blocks a devastating strike, the force of the blow sending shockwaves through the ground. His knees buckle, but he stays upright, his body moving with a fluidity he has never experienced before. He strikes back, his hand crackling with dark energy, but the divine executor effortlessly sidesteps, countering with a brutal thrust of its divine spear. You still don't understand, the divine executor sneers. The gods do not fall, the divine will cannot be shattered by the likes of you. For a moment, doubt creeps into the protagonist's heart. The words echo in his mind. The gods do not fall. Are the gods truly invincible? Has he been wasting his time? But then he remembers the years of suffering, the endless torment, the pain of being betrayed, and most importantly, the faces of those he's lost. This is not just about revenge anymore, it's about the future. A future where the gods no longer control the lives of the innocent. A future where he and everyone like him is free. With that thought, he channels everything, his rage, his pain, and the clarity he's gained into a single, decisive strike. The divine energy that courses through him becomes an unstoppable force, his power coalescing into a focused beam of darkness that slices through the air with blinding speed. The divine executor attempts to block it, but the protagonist is faster, more focused. The beam connects, tearing through the executor's armor and sending it crashing to the ground with a deafening roar. The divine figure stirs, struggling to rise, but its energy begins to wane, its divine form flickering as though reality itself is rejecting its existence. The turning point. For a brief moment, it seems like the battle is won, but the protagonist's victory is short-lived. A dark cloud forms overhead, an unnatural eclipse that blots out the sun. The ground trembles as an ominous force builds from above, and the protagonist realizes, too late, that the true power of the gods has been awakened. The sky rips open with divine lightning, and from the rift, a god steps forward, its form massive, an embodiment of divine authority. It's an ancient being so old that its very presence warps the air around it, its eyes glowing with an ancient malevolence. Its voice resonates with the power of creation itself. You have done well to make it this far, mortal, the god speaks, its voice both thunderous and chilling. But you are outmatched, you are nothing against me. I am the embodiment of divine will, the one who shapes the fate of this world. The protagonist, now standing in the center of the battlefield, feels the weight of this being's power. The energy it exudes is suffocating. This is it. This is the true face of the gods. He stares at the god, his mind racing. This being is what stands at the top of the divine hierarchy. This is what he must defeat to bring freedom to the world. A final decision. With a deep breath, the protagonist steps forward, his body battered but his resolve unshaken. He knows that this is the moment where everything will be decided. He has a choice. He could continue fighting with everything he has, but will it be enough? Will it ever be enough? The radiant figure, the one who had guided him through his struggles, appears beside him, their presence calm, their energy still, but unwavering. You've come so far, the radiant figure says softly, but this is your final test. You must face not only the gods, but yourself. You've chosen a path of change, of redemption, and now you must prove that you can walk it. The protagonist feels the power surge within him again. It's not blind rage anymore, it's clarity, it's purpose. And as he faces the god, he knows what he must do. The god smiles cruelly, its divine aura crackling. You cannot defeat me, you are insignificant in the grand design of the universe. But the protagonist doesn't hesitate. He channels everything he has, his anger, his fear, his hope, into a single strike, not just with raw power, but with understanding. The god's form flickers, its energy faltering for the first time as the protagonist's controlled power rips through the divine being's defenses. The god stumbles back, its body cracking, unable to withstand the force of the protagonist's determination. The god's smug expression begins to falter, its form breaking apart as the protagonist's energy consumes it. The protagonist falls to his knees, exhausted but victorious. The god is dead. Cliffhanger. The sky cracks open once more, and from the depths of the heavens, the voice of another god echoes through the world, louder than before. "You have slain one of us," the voice declares, "but there are more, and we are not so easily defeated. You are only beginning to understand the true power of the gods. This world will be ours once again. We will reclaim what is ours." As the protagonist stands battered but resolute, the final battle is far from over. The gods may be powerful, but now the protagonist knows he has the power to change everything. Will he be able to stop the gods once and for all, or is the final showdown yet to come? The gods' final words reverberate through the very air around them, a booming declaration of divine supremacy that seems to shudder the earth beneath the protagonist's feet. The protagonist stands tall, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling with every labored breath. His body is battered and worn from the fight, bruised, broken, and weary, but his spirit has never been more resolute. The gods' arrogance, their belief that they are untouchable, will not stand any longer. The last divine figure, whose body now lies crumbling in the wake of the protagonist's controlled power, is but a single piece in the vast puzzle the gods have built. But it is enough. He's made it this far. He's defeated the embodiment of divine will itself. The voice of the god echoes again, distant and overwhelming, reverberating in the very core of his being. It warns of the god's return, of the endless power that remains in their grasp. The protagonist can feel the weight of the god's threat, but rather than fear, there's only the cold, unmistakable fire of purpose. "We are the gods, we created this world, and we will reclaim it," the voice booms, a dark promise that trembles through the atmosphere, rattling the bones of the earth. "You will never break us, you will never defeat us." The protagonist looks up, his eyes narrowing with steely resolve. His heart pounds in his chest, but this time there is no anger, no uncontrolled rage, only clarity. The battle has changed. It is no longer about vengeance. It is about freedom. The moment of reflection. Seraphine and step forward, their steps slow but confident as they approach the protagonist. The air feels charged with energy, as though the very world itself is holding its breath in the wake of the final battle. But this is not the end, not yet. His face, grim but filled with a deep respect, says, "You did it, kid, you actually did it." Seraphine stands beside them, her usual calm demeanor replaced with a rare flicker of admiration. "You've come a long way. When I first met you, you were nothing but a broken shell, consumed by vengeance. But now you've become something else, something greater." The protagonist glances at them, feeling the weight of their words settle in his chest. It's true. When he first began this journey, his only goal was to destroy the gods. His heart was a furnace of rage, and the only thing that drove him was revenge. But through everything, through the suffering, the pain, the allies he's gained and lost, he's become something more. "I was blinded by my anger," the protagonist admits quietly. "But I've learned, this fight was never just about me. It's about everyone who's been crushed under the god's heel. It's about changing the world." Seraphine smiles faintly, her eyes thoughtful. "Yes, it's about more than just defeating the gods. It's about what you will do with this power. The gods may have fallen, but the battle for freedom, for a world without tyranny, is still far from over." The end of one era, the beginning of another. The protagonist turns his eyes to the horizon, the dark clouds of divine wrath beginning to dissipate. The sky is still ominous, the world still holding its breath, but there is something else, something new flickering in the air. The gods may have sent their champions to fight, but the protagonist has proven something that they cannot ignore. The gods are not invincible. He feels the weight of the divine power coursing through his veins, still raw, still wild, but now more tempered than ever before. He is no longer a slave to his rage. He's learned to wield his power with purpose. But there's something more, something that Seraphine know too. There are still remnants of the gods' control over the world, threads of their influence that reach far beyond the physical realm. The true test, the real struggle, is not over yet. A tremor shakes the earth, subtle but unnerving, as the sound of wings fills the air. The protagonist's gaze snaps upward, and for a moment he sees them, the gods. They appear not as simple figures, but as towering, majestic beings, their forms radiant and terrible all at once. They are not mere gods of destruction, but of creation, of power beyond comprehension. The world quakes at their arrival, their divine presence cracking the heavens open, yet they are not invincible, not anymore. The protagonist steps forward, the ground beneath him beginning to ripple with the dark energy that flows through him. Seraphine and stand at his side, and together they prepare for the final confrontation. The gods, still arrogant and unyielding, stand before them, their eyes burning with the promise of an eternal reign. "You think you can stop us, mortal?" One of the gods speaks, its voice like thunder, its tone filled with disdain. "We are the origin of this world. You are nothing but a fleeting spark." But the protagonist doesn't flinch. "I'm not just a fleeting spark. I am the fire that will burn your reign to the ground." Seraphine steps forward, her energy radiating with an otherworldly calm. "You've forgotten something, gods. The power you wield, the dominion you've held over this world, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to everyone. It belongs to the world you've tried to control." Ever the warrior cracks his knuckles and grins, "And we're here to make sure you remember that." A choice for the future. The gods, sensing the change in the air, begin to move. Their divine forms, once seemingly unstoppable, now flicker with uncertainty. They realize, perhaps for the first time, that their reign may not be as eternal as they thought. The protagonist, standing at the center of this cosmic battle, understands now that his fight is no longer just about revenge. It's about a new beginning for the world. For everyone who has been enslaved by the gods' dominance, there is a chance for freedom. The protagonist channels his energy again, this time not in rage, but in purpose. His power surges as he pulls from everything he's learned, everything he's become. He steps forward, his hand reaching out not as a weapon, but as a symbol of resistance. The gods' eyes narrow, but there is a flicker of hesitation in their divine gaze. They know they have underestimated him. They know now that this world, this fight, is not as one-sided as they've always believed. As the gods move in to strike, the protagonist stands firm. "It's not just me anymore," he says, his voice ringing clear. "This world is changing, and with or without your will, it will be free." The battle erupts once again, but this time it's different. The protagonist is not alone. He is no longer just fighting for himself. He is fighting for the freedom of everyone who has ever been oppressed, for a world where no one is ruled by divine tyranny. The gods may have their power, but they have underestimated the will of those who fight for something more. Cliffhanger: the future. As the protagonists, Seraphine, and engage in battle with the gods, their energies clash in a violent spectacle that shakes the very fabric of reality. The divine beings roar in fury, their powers immense, but the protagonist is no longer the helpless warrior he once was. He is a force, a new power in the world, and with each strike, with each move, he redefines the fate of this world. But the gods are not defeated yet. Their power is ancient and their wrath is immense. The final showdown has only just begun. Will the protagonist be able to fully unleash the power within him? Can he and his allies overthrow the gods' reign once and for all? The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the world will never be the same again. And this battle is just the beginning.